G'day and welcome to Lamb Talk. I'm your host, Catherine Fannig. Lamb Talk is a weekly podcast that is all about lamb and a little bit about life. Today, we're going to be talking to health and nutrition consultant Karen Ehrens about the bonding of families and communities through preparing and sharing meals together. Let's take a listen. Welcome, everyone. I'm sitting here with Karen Ehrens of Ehrens Consulting, Bismarck, North Dakota. How are you doing today, Karen?
Hello, Kate. I'm doing well, thank you.
Excellent to catch up with you again. It's been about a month since I saw you last.
Yes, it has been. And it's good that we can close the distance between us physically and still keep in touch.
It's the wonders of modern technology. It's incredible, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Karen, you're very involved in local foods and family healthy eating. Let's talk a little bit about family bonding, meal times, that sort of thing.
Well, one of the most important things that I talk about and encourage families to do, and that's eat together. Eating together with your family is the place where we learn a lot about ourselves and pass down our culture and traditions through our children. And it's where how we learn how to treat each other and our food with respect.
Excellent. Yeah, well, we can't do that in the car racing around between fast food stop and fast food stop, can we?
It's pretty hard to do there when our worlds are a bit frantic and hectic. I think nearly everyone has some of those kind of meals, but the less that we can do those frantic, hectic kind of meals and sit down, relax, and enjoy each other's company, the better off this world will be.
Exactly. Do you think it has more to do with the habit of sitting down or the fact that sitting down over a family produced meal, the nutrition is better, or is it a combination?
I think it's a combination, and I don't even though I'm a registered dietitian, I worry less about the nutrition value of the meal than the fact of just sitting down and being together. And I think once you start to implement and enjoy that habit, the other things follow.
Right. On the local foods aspect, you can continue the tradition with the planting and growing of as much food as possible?
Yes, I've found, and one of the reasons that I think learning about where your food comes from, and often that's most easily done, is when you choose foods that are grown closest to you, is that you are able to connect your children to where their food comes from, so that it isn't an afterthought. It isn't just something that a meal isn't just something that you squeeze in because you have to do it in between all your other activities. That local foods helps everyone learn more about this process of planting seeds, growing food, harvesting, and getting it to the eaters. The more you understand all the steps and the care and the time it takes to grow the food, I think the more our families can appreciate the eating of the food.
Right. So it's more about the connecting of ourselves with each other and back with nature?
Yes. I have seen examples of some of the children that go to the schools that my daughter has gone to, and they just have no idea other than food coming off a grocery store shelf or out of a sack from the drive up, of no idea of where their food comes from. And I think when that disconnect happens, the easier it is for us to take our food for granted. Everyone needs to eat every day, 3 or more times. And the more attention we can pay to it, the less we take it for granted, the better our health usually is.
Right. So now I principally focus on lamb and all things surrounding lamb. What was your first experience as probably as a child that you remember either eating, learning about, anything to do with lamb?
Well, in North Dakota here, where I grew up, I think my first exposure to lamb was on a hero sandwich at the North Dakota State Fair. In Minot, North Dakota, we have a small group of people who came from Greece, and they are Greek Orthodox, and they sell this wonderful food at a stand at the fair to raise funds for their organization.
Excellent. That is a wonderful savory choice there.
Mm-hmm.
One of my favorites too. So do you ever cook that yourself?
Well, yes. Just a few months ago, while you were still here in Bismarck and you had this wonderful product of the hero meat that comes frozen in a package, we found that a very nice way to enjoy a hero without having to wait for that just once a year.
Yeah. Why can't we have State Fair more often? It's a great way to get the family around the food.
Yes.
Over a Greek euro. What would be another favorite recipe?
Well, another way that I love to enjoy lamb is lamb chops, either broiled in a range or grilled, and then served with a special sauce called chimichurri sauce. And chimichurri sauce originated, I guess, in Argentina, and it's usually a green leafy herb like parsley or basil or mint, combined with vinegar, garlic, and olive oil, and some spices and herbs. And this bright and fresh flavor going along with the rich, deep flavors of the lamb, I think they just taste really well together. Much akin to having the mint jelly with lamb on Easter time.
Yep. Would you be so kind as to allow us a copy of that recipe, and we'll post it on the website?
Sure. We try several of them, and this great website called epicurious.com has several different recipes for chimichurri sauce, and as long as we get it spelled right, you can just do a quick search there and find a tasty one of your choice.
The trick is spelling it right?
Yeah, chimichurri.
Good luck to the one that's dyslexic in the two of us. Sounds like there's too many repeated letters in that one.
That's right.
Now, you've been involved in a CSA for a number of years?
Yes, because I work with local foods on a statewide level. I have tried to try out different CSAs, and we've been members of 3 different CSAs, and we love the experience. CSA being community-supported agriculture, where a family will buy a share of a farmer's produce, and you put the money up front at the beginning of the year, and actually end up sharing the risk of all the potential things that go right or go wrong with the farming season, including weather and insects and ground and soil.
And flooding, as in last spring.
Yes, all over the state. So we just think that's a wonderful way to learn more about food and get some really good tasting food as well.
Excellent. And so you've been involved in CSAs for an economic reason, a conscience, just wanting to help promote local foods. What's the driving force there? What do you get out?
All of the above. We think that when you purchase food from a CSA, the money that we spend stays and gets spent and circulates through the local economy. So for economic reasons, to help our daughter learn more about our food and where it comes from, we participate. And often we find that the food that's grown locally and gets to us in a very short amount of time, from the time it leaves the field to the time it gets our plates, and the care that's taken by all of the CSA producers with whom we've done business results in really good tasting food. And with my husband as a chef and myself as a dietitian, we are foodies, and so we appreciate the excellent flavors of the produce that we have purchased and shared.
Excellent, excellent. And from the farmer's point of view, well, that leads us to another interview, doesn't it? Talking to the farmer himself. But from the farmer's point of view, it helps them spread their expenses and not have to go to the bank to borrow all the money for the seed and fertilizer at the beginning of the year.
Right. And so there have been some years when we've had flooding, and the farmer, instead of taking on all that risk themselves, spreads it out between the members of the CSA. So there have been a couple years when we've had a small amount of produce, smaller than other years, but we think that helping each other out in our community, we're willing to help spread that risk around and take on some of that risk ourselves because we eat, and don't think it has to necessarily be the farmer that takes all that risk on themselves on their own.
Right, right. And then I'm sure, well, I am a farmer. I'm not right now, but I have been. And I know that the social interaction with the customer is of great benefit to, well, it was to me. And I'm going to extrapolate out to say that most farmers appreciate that personal one-on-one contact.
Yes, that time of the week, each week when we would go to pick up our food was one of the favorite times of the week, not just to see the surprises that we got from our bag, from the meat that we picked up or the vegetables that we picked up, but mostly because of the chance to talk with our farmer, get to know them, find out what was the most pressing issue of the week, but also just to enjoy each other's company. Right,
right. What do you think, going back to the kitchen and the kitchen table, kids cooking in the kitchen, everyone's always a little afraid, oh, Johnny's going to get hurt, burned. But really the overall experience, it far outweighs the small amount of risk if they're supervised and encouraged. What are your thoughts there, Karen?
Oh, definitely. From 2 years old and on up, kids can help out in the kitchen. They can learn math skills. They can appreciate what it takes to get a meal on the table. It can inspire them to cook and be self-sufficient when it's time for them to be out on their own. And it's fun. And there are different books or websites that you can go to find, when they're two, what are some things they can do? They can help set the table. They can find bowls. They can learn what measuring spoons are. As they grow older, they can help cut things, maybe starting with a kitchen scissor, and then, graduating up to learning knife skills. They appreciate and learn about math skills through weighing or measuring out how much food is in, how the ingredients go together in a recipe. And I think, again, just helping them gain an appreciation for the food that they're eating instead of it just being served to them on a plate or out of a bag. They get and understand what it takes to put a meal on the table.
Right. And then they can graduate off the 2-minute noodles when they're at university?
Yes. Although I think that's part of every college student's life at some point. But I've heard of some pretty sophisticated recipes and cooking going on in college dorms here in North Dakota and other places in our country.
Well, and again, that leads to another interview, huh? Maybe I should interview a college dorm student that's being innovative in the kitchen in their dorm room.
Ideas left and right for you, Kate.
Oh, you're wonderful. So now, what projects have you got on your table at the moment?
Oh, let's see. Well, in North Dakota here, we're getting ready for our annual Local Foods Conference, which will be February 3rd and 4th in Fargo, North Dakota. Mm-hmm. I continue to work on childhood obesity prevention efforts and getting out some toolkits to area pediatricians and physicians so that they can share with families places in our community where they can go to be physically active or find healthy food to eat. I am working on constantly communicating out about healthy foods and healthy living via websites and social media networks, and always trying to stay up to date with the latest food research and learning from that and helping make it understandable so that people can incorporate that into their food choices.
Wow, sounds like you're busy.
Busy. There's a big problem here in the United States, and in starting with people not being connected with their food and ending up as people not being healthy, leading to increased costs for our employers and our country's budget. So working at many different points along that way to try and make things better.
So it could be said that if you simplify your food and your lifestyle, some parts of obesity and the underlying issues that come with it are straightened out, and that you get back to the basics of how do I cook, what do I cook, instead of always brown bagging it in the back of the car or in the front of the car if you're the driver.
Yep. Excellent observation, Kate. It starts with everyone playing a role in helping to address our nation's obesity problem. It's the families, it's at schools where food and consumer science classes, what used to be called home economics, is making somewhat of a comeback as people are understanding that knowing how to find good food and put it together, the big role that it plays in keeping people healthy. And then at the community level, when we make healthy foods available at places where people do purchase food or give food out. So really, it takes all of us working together to move forward and address the issues.
Right. And then back to your local foods conference in February. What's the topic this year?
Well, we have several good speakers, and they include a community organizer from the Minneapolis-St. Paul area, learning about social media skills so that the farmers, producers can get some hints and tips there from a person who formerly worked at a place called the Ad Farm. Also learning from the producers and growers themselves. One of our CSA members here from the Bismarck-Mandan area will be a featured dinner speaker. So there's a good mix of education and networking for people who grow food and sell food and eat food.
Excellent. And where was that going to be? In Fargo?
Yeah, Fargo, North Dakota at the Holiday Inn, February 3rd and 4th.
And are they being cooperative and allowing local foods to be cooked and served?
Well, I haven't been working on that part of the agenda, but I think some of the institutions are being more accepting of that. So we'll keep our fingers crossed and that we're able to bring in some local food for our local foods conference.
Well, it would make sense, wouldn't it?
I believe
Doublewood Inn in Bismarck deserves a shout out because they were the first hotel in North Dakota, as far as I'm aware, to have allowed local foods in for the local foods conference. Mm-hmm. So that was a tremendous step forward.
Right.
Now, we had a very famous local foods promoter come into North Dakota last month, was it? Well, just this month, wasn't it? December.
Yes.
Paul Salatin?
Yes. From the Virginia area. And he shared with us his amazing growth as someone who recognizes how integrated farming, where you're not just growing row crops or you're not just producing livestock or animals, but doing it all together in a small little ecosystem brings multiple benefits to the environment and the food that's produced at his farm there.
Right. Yes, he's not a great advocate of a monoculture farming system, is he? He wants a very diverse, vertically integrated farming process, as far as I can understand.
Right. He advocates for kind of the circle of nature, where the animals that he grows there on the land, they help to fertilize the land and and then the greens and other vegetables that are grown there. The parts that aren't eaten get turned back into the soil. So there's this wonderful cycle, natural cycle that he capitalizes on and minimizes the inputs that he needs to purchase, and or not using a lot of petroleum-based chemicals as he's growing, because the natural inputs of nature, which have been in our natural systems for thousands of years, he's found a way to make that profitable, and he's sharing his enthusiasm and ideas with growers and eaters across the country.
Well, excellent. We can do with more, can't we?
We can.
Yeah. Now, you sent me a link to now, how do we say this, Karen? Ellen Satter?
Yep, Ellen Satter. She's a child feeding expert that I think really gets it right when she has written books and newsletters and is a speaker that helps parents and kids figure out their relationship with food.
Right. Well, I visited her website this morning prior to our conversation here, and she seemed to have quite a bit of insight into, again, just simplifying your life and only being involved in your role, so that your role as a parent is to provide the good quality food, and it is the child's decision whether they're hungry or not.
Right. What we like to, when we quote Ellen, we like to say parents provide and kids decide. So that parents are providing the food and the structured and the opportunities for family meal times, and kids then choose how much and whether they eat from what the parents provide.
I suppose the key there is that there's no snitching in between meals if they decide not to eat at the meal.
That's right. And maybe they learn that they will learn to appreciate more and different kinds of foods when they eat in a situation where there's not pressure put on them to finish all the peas on your plate before you get dessert or things like that. So making a variety of good foods available at the table, so that kids can fill up, and figuring out that, oh, gee, maybe I will have to try this new food because I am really hungry, and that's what's there on the table.
Right. Well, I know that as a family, we like to sit down and eat as a family and do a head count to make sure everyone's present and accounted for in our busy schedules. And it's a good opportunity to catch up with the day, especially as my older two get older and they start heading in different directions. It's a time to regroup and reconnect and find out the good and the bad that happened that day.
Oh, excellent, Kate. That sounds like a wonderful family mealtime. And sometimes, like I said, you're not just eating together, you're learning about and from each other. And it's done around the table in the sharing of food.
Right. So it's a time to offer support, not only nutritionally, but emotionally and morally.
Yes, because like you said, we have kids that have activities after school. Maybe they have them in the evening. But if you kind of insist or instill that our family dinner together is really important, if families are not there yet, maybe a good place to start is just by trying to sit down as a family to dinner one night a week. For others, like our family, it's something we strive to do each and every day.
Yes, we do too. It doesn't always happen that way, though, does it?
It doesn't always happen that way, but we try.
We do. Now, the other website that you pinged across to me is healthynd.org. What's that one all about?
Well, Healthy North Dakota is North Dakota's prevention effort, and I also work as a consultant with Healthy North Dakota, and we work to help bring people and groups together that are working on similar types of prevention efforts and break down silos, help get people working together where they can so they don't have to reinvent the wheel. They can share resources and people and ideas. And then on our website, healthynd.org, we help to share some healthy living information with anyone who's interested. And a couple of my favorite sections are the family section, where we link people to some information about the importance of family meals. And by the way, Kate, did you know that the more often families eat together, the less likely are the kids they're less likely to smoke, less likely to drink or do drugs, have depression, develop eating disorders, and the more likely they are to do well in school, eat their vegetables, learn big words, and know which fork to use.
Well, how can you beat that?
You can't. It's a great thing all around.
I think we should all be making some time in the evenings to sit down around the table and enjoy each other's company and some good lamb.
Mm-hmm. I think that if people aren't familiar with lamb, if you have a favorite meatball recipe at your family, you could try using ground lamb in place of part of the pork or the beef that you normally eat in. And maybe you want to serve a new food along with some familiar foods. That's one of Ellen Satter's ideas for introducing new foods to kids. Because believe it or not, it can take kids 15 or up to 20 times of trying a food before they figure out they like it. And that goes for adults too, because my favorite story was Brussels sprouts. And I married my husband, even though he loved Brussels sprouts, and I hated them.
Despite the fact, wow, he must be a cool guy.
But then I figured out that I had probably only tasted Brussels sprouts 1 or 2 times in my life. And so by eventually trying some each time that my husband made them, I have now probably tried them more than 20 times, and I actually say that I like them. So that's a good thing for families to remember as they're trying to introduce new foods to their kids, especially ones that might have a strong flavor. Now, foods that are high in sugar or fat or salt, it probably might only take one time for the kid to say, that's good. But some things like broccoli or Brussels sprouts, you might need to take a few more tries and don't give up.
Yeah. Well, as a cook, that can get a little depressing, though, if your child turns their nose up at it even 2 or 3 times, because you start going, oh, I really don't want to mess with this. But I know Brussels sprouts have a terrible reputation, and I'm not a great fan of them. And you only cook what you like, and cooking Brussels sprouts is not high on my agenda. But I do understand. But as a cook, I would find it quite difficult to keep introducing something that wasn't being appreciated.
Right. And so if you just prepare small amounts, from time to time, if it wasn't a big hit, don't try to do it too close together, but kind of spread out the tryings. If it's a vegetable and you have a compost pile, it makes me feel a little less bad if I can put our vegetable peelings or vegetables that didn't get eaten into the compost pile rather than just throwing them out.
That is a good point. Yep. If you're recycling the leftovers and just do a small amount each time, then it's not quite so hard on both your emotions and your pocketbook.
Right. And as cooks, sometimes we take things really personally, and if people don't like our cooking, we can get wounded. But as mothers or people cooking for our families, we just have to, I guess, rise above that and acknowledge that everyone has a little bit of different tastes. Even if we're all related and in the same family, we each have our individual tastes.
Yes, well, we do take a lot of our kudos from the acceptance of the meal on the table. As a mother, a cooking mother, yeah. If you don't get a good response, then you're going, you start questioning yourself as a good cook.
Yep, that can happen, but keep trying.
Don't we always? We just have to, right?
We have to.
One foot in front of the other every day.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Well, Karen, thank you very much for your time today. And we will post both those websites, www.healthynd.org and www.ellensatter.com, and that's ELLYNSATTER.com. ehrensconsulting.com. We'll post them both on our website and yours as well, ehrensconsulting.com. And we'll look forward to having you back to talk about some more topics.
I'd love to be back and talk with you again, Kate. Thank you for asking me.
You're welcome, Karen, anytime. Thank you, Karen, for your time and contribution to Lamb Talk. You can find out more about Karen Ehrens and her work by visiting our show notes on the blog. And thank you, my listeners, for helping make this podcast a success. You can find other episodes of Lamb Talk on our website at www.lambshow.com. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/lambshow and on Twitter at twitter.com/lambshow. We would love to hear from you. Until next week, see you around the block.
This show is produced by Wild Inspire Media.